Web technologies. What is a web technology? Well, what is web? Web comes from World Wide Web, which came from the concept of making a graphical user interface to the internet. And the internet started as a collection of IP-based protocols, and by that I mean there's a 7-layer stack in IP network, in networking period. There's the physical layer, which is basically the base physical. It could be a piece of copper, it could be a fiber optic line, it could be radio frequency. And then there's sort of layer 2 is sort of a combination of that's like networking technologies like Ethernet, if you've heard of Ethernet, which is sort of it's a switch type of thing. It connects everything on the same piece of wire. That's what layer 2 does. And then if you go up one more step, that's layer 3, which is the Internet Protocol layer. And what that does is it enables transport between networks. So internet or internetworking, meaning I'm connecting from network over here, where there might be an office, to another office or university. And the Internet Protocol enables communication between those two networks. So web technologies, there were all these protocols that ran on the IP layer, layer 3. There's SNMP, which is Simple Network Mail Protocol, and that's basically email. That is a protocol that runs. That's why you have email programs, Outlook, and that runs on SNMP, and it understands that SNMP protocol. There are FTP protocols, which is a file transfer protocol, which enables you to send files back and forth between these networks. There was a thing called Telnet, and in the old days, before it was really graphical, you would have to use a keyboard, and it was a blank screen with words on it, and you would telnet into actual servers, and you would provide a password, and then you could get to the directory structure of those machines. Well, that was pretty cumbersome, and the adoption rate wasn't really high. There were people that were in the academic world that knew how to use all this stuff. Unix was a big network operating system that people used and loved and knew all the commands. But they were sort of the IT, the computer scientists were really into that stuff. But anyway, in around 1995, the graphical user interface was developed for the HTTP protocol, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is an IP protocol just like mail, just like Telnet, just like FTP, but there's HTTP, and that enabled the linking and the hyperlinking. You know, you see the line, you know, with a link, the line, you click on the button, it took you to that resource. That was groundbreaking stuff in 1995. And then when you laid a graphical user interface on top of it, and the first browser is a browser, and it was called Mosaic, was one of the first. And Netscape was another one, if you've heard of that. Anyway, what that did is it started to remove the need to know all the commands on the blank screen and type in the command and all that. The browser took care of that for you. All you knew you had to do was go to www.microsoft.com, and magically you would go to that server. And so web technologies is built on that sort of ability, that the web, the World Wide Web that was created, this graphical user interface. And in the bottom line, it's somewhat of a it uses HTTP, that protocol, and really there's browsers. And what browsers do are they take all of those protocols together and that browser, that container, can run them all. So then now you can do file transfers over it. You can do email over this stuff, and it all shows up in the browser, and we take it for granted today. And what web technologies do is they leverage that capability. And so we have things like Wikipedia, which is, that's a lot of HTTP. People just provide information, provide links, and that's updated. But it's a web technology. Social media, same thing. It's leveraging these protocols, and it's creating applications that are focused around like Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, this connectivity, and it's taken those protocols and focusing content around that. And in the big picture, what's happening is most of the content is becoming more and more centralized or cloud-based, which, there's many definitions of what cloud-based means. In my definition, it means it's a centralized repository of information, and that repository doesn't have to be on the same machine. It could be distributed, but in the big picture, end users use devices. It can be a cell phone, a smartphone, a laptop, anything connected to the internet, to log in and get the resources centrally and back. So Leo is a great example. I mean, all the files that we have here are stored on Leo in some series of servers, and you log in and interact with the Leo program. Leo is all based on HTTP and web technologies. So this is the way forward. So many people take it for granted that this is the way it is. They forget how it was before. You used to have to store everything on your hard drive, and if that thing crashed or you lost it, it was, oh my gosh, all your files were gone. Today you have backups. You have, have a couple gig of storage. You can access it all, from anywhere and go to any device. This is all taken for granted. But that's what web technologies are, and there will continue to be innovation and new things because it will fulfill certain needs, and these are new business models that come up. But I think we're all in a better place for them, and I think they make life much more efficient.